Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Midgards Messer SIF or SIF Ultralight. This is an odd knife, just from this perspective, but it's also ridiculously thick. If you're familiar with Midgards Messer knives, this is par for the course. But this knife takes the ridiculousness to a whole new level, and there are a number of confusing elements here. If you'd like to check this knife out, I will make sure that it is linked right down below. It does help my channel when you use my links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks so much to Tools for Gents and Midgards Messer for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Yes, the cutting geometry is ridiculous. No, it does not cut very well. I promise I'm going to cover that. Let's go ahead and get a measurement on this knife. Overall length is coming in at about under 7 inches, 6.75 inches. Blade length is 3 inches on the dot, and cutting edge is just shy. 2.95 inches maybe. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons, just a couple here. Up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. This guy is actually a little bit shorter than the Rat 2. Interesting. Just a couple more here. Up against the Demco AD 20.5. My thumbs, I can kind of use my thumb now. It's so nice after a week of not being able to use my thumb. Anyways, up against the Spyderco Para 3. And let's go ahead and do the Benchmade Bug Out last. I think that'll be it. All right. So, how is the action on this guy? Well, you can engage it and disengage it pretty easily if you go slowly. Access to the lock bar is pretty good. Front flipping it is... if you guys watched my story a few weeks ago, you saw that I literally accidentally threw this knife. It's just a little bit... There's a lot of blade to pull out of here. And the detent's not strong, but the relationship between the detent and how short this front flipper unicorn horn is, it needed to be a little bit taller. So with this knife, being the way that it is, there is a significant risk of accidentally throwing it, at least if your hands are similar to mine. Like I wear an XL glove. If your hands are similar to mine, right? XL glove is pretty common hand size. I don't know why. I always say this. I don't know why. They're like, it's XL. If it's XL, then literally every guy I know who's an adult wears an XL glove. So I don't know why they're sized that way. Anyways, I don't want to get on that tangent. I have a common hand size. There's a good size that there's a good chance you're going to accidentally throw this or accidentally injure yourself with it, despite the fact that it's not super duper sharp. So it's a little bit awkward. The funny thing is the easier way to deploy it is to use this little flat area back here, right? Which, if you get your finger out of the way, will actually allow you to flip it. The problem is that this is not intended as a means of deployment. This is actually the tang of the blade, the part of the blade that is responsible for the lock bar engaging and locking it out. If you try to push button it, you are going to get the absolute beans pinched out of your finger as this comes back around. So you really have to get it out of the way. See what I mean? All right. It's also really sharp, this area right here, because again, it's not intended as a deployment, means of deployment. The other issue here is that the area that the lock bar engages with, right? The area that is responsible for solidity and lockout is exposed. If you drop this knife accidentally, right, one of the times you're trying to deploy it, so there's a high chance that you're going to accidentally drop it. I've dropped it or thrown it at least a few times since I've had it. If this hits a hard surface, you are going to mess up that lock face. right? Well, or the blade tang face that interacts with the lock face, which means the lock will likely not engage the same way. Now, this is a problem, right? The geometry and the surface, they have to be very specifically machined in order to allow you to disengage it easily, but also, for it to lock up solid. Right now, it does lock up solid. Yeah, absolutely. But if I bang that a few times against the ground, it's probably not. This is an issue. This area should never, ever be exposed outside of the frame. It should always be sunk under the frame. In 99.999% of frame lock designs, this is the case, and it is on purpose. That area should not be exposed. So, there you go. Action otherwise is okay. It's tight, but it's consistent. These knives, to my knowledge, are, well, the other knives that I've reviewed from Midgards Messer were all manufactured by Concept. The company is based, this is information that they freely give. Their fixed blades and stuff, the Midgards Messer fixed blades are apparently handmade, or at least partially handmade in Germany. And then the designs for the Midgards Messer folding knives come, of course, from them, but they are manufactured by Concept in China, which is, to my knowledge, the case with this guy. It feels similar to other Concepts, but it just it's just big and chunky and kind of awkward. Nothing really feels like it's working the way that it was intended. But then again, the intentions are also kind of confusing. I should make it clear that I have been a gigantic fan of the Midgards Messer knives in the past. They work a little bit better. The action works a little bit better, considering they are all huge and thick and chunky. It worked better because the whole knife is bigger. It's also, they haven't been front flippers up to this point. Let's go ahead and do carry profile since we're like already 6 minutes in. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Yeah, wow, it is freaking thick. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. You can see here that this guy's actually shorter. I mean, in terms of overall length versus the Para 3, it's also nowhere near as tall. It's really just the thickness that is the issue here. This is one of the thickest small knives I have ever seen. The only other knife that feels similar that I've ever handled is the Micro Praetorian tie from Medford. Not the T, not the skinny one, the tie. And it is equally awkward. But yeah, this is thick. Titanium, and I thought, all the other ones have been CPM D2. This one is CPM S30V. Surprising. Interesting. I really wish that they would just use like S35VN. Concept, apparently has a crap load of S35VN because, a lot of their knives are in that. I think it would be cool with Midgards Messer knives in the future. It's not to say that S35VN is universally better than S30V. S30V will actually hold an edge longer, right? It's my understanding the switch up to S35 was ease of machining while still maintaining excellent edge retention in a reasonable and easy to achieve HRC range. It also has incredible edge retention, or very good edge retention, and very good toughness, and it's also a little bit easier to sharpen. So the preferences, there's incremental differences between S30V and S35VN, but as far as what people in the modern day and age expect on this tier of knife, I think S35VN would probably be a better choice. CPM D2, as much as I love it, people just get confused by it. They think that it's the same thing as D2. But it's also not stainless, and a lot of the properties of CPM D2, which is what they normally use on their knives, right? This is not applicable to this knife. A lot of those properties are not preferable to people who are buying these knives. So, I don't know why, but I think it might be a good idea for the Midgards Messer knives in the future to be S35VN or something similar. But that's just me making a wish, right? Let's go ahead and weigh it. This is big, thick pieces of everything, and it technically does have weight reduction milling, right? So let's keep in mind it has a 3-inch blade. So perfect ratios would be 3 ounces. Not a chance. This thing weighs 5 ounces. It's still not, 5 ounces is not that much. Like your cell phone in its OtterBox is way more awkward and heavy, definitely heavier than that. But it's still a lot of weight for a knife like this. Still less than I thought it would be. I thought it would be 6 ounces, but it's still heavy, right? So this is going to be not necessarily, the overall size of the object is not going to be something that is totally foreign to your pockets. It's the thickness and dimensions and awkwardness of the overall profile that you are going to notice. Couple that with the fact that it is nowhere near the easiest thing to deploy and manipulate. It's an awkward thing to adapt to, but if you really want to, if you really, really want to, you can adapt to it, just like everything, right? You just gotta believe. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness. I think it's almost 1/4 inch, about the same as the other Midgards Messer knives. Yeah, holy moly. 235 thousandths. Very close to 1/4 inch, very thick. I know it's not centered. We'll talk about that. We already did the hardware check. Let's go ahead and get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. The pivot is absolutely a T8, and the body screws are also a T8. So that's nice. If you want to take it apart, it shouldn't be super duper difficult. I have already made some adjustments, and we'll talk more about that, but it is a simple sandwich construction frame lock, so shouldn't be that difficult. Okay, let's move into the meat and potatoes here. First and foremost, you know, it's something that I always joke about with ultra thick knives. And I know, despite what I said right at the beginning, right? I said, yeah, I know it's thick. I know the geometry won't allow it to cut, right? Well, I know it's thick, and I'm going to point out right away that the geometry is not going to allow it to cut, because I know that there are people just desperately, like they were sprinting to get to the comments, and it's just sweating and weeping, and I need to inform everyone that thick knives can't cut. Just calm down. Listen, make a point here. It's not just that thick knife. It's not just the thickness, right? This is just something people repeat without understanding what they're saying. Here's a knife that's way thicker. This is the PMP Alpha Beast, okay? This thing is way, way thicker on the spine. But at the edge, it is still absolutely sharp enough to slice. Oh, yeah, that, what kind of black magic is this, right? This is geometry. It's simple geometry, right? So stop screaming that. Stop yelling that like it's universal fact. I know that people are like, why is he? It seems like he's getting really upset about something that's really isolated. I see it all the time. People go watch video, or they, see something, and they make assumptions based on what they hear other people say, right? So then they scream it all over the place, and it's just stupid. It doesn't make any sense. Yes, the problem here is that you have to push the entire wedge through the material, right? I am in no way, shape, or form saying that this is practical because it can slice. It is still absolutely impractical because of how thick it is, right? This is a ridiculous object, and the people who designed it know that it is a ridiculous object. Imagine that. But let's not pretend that anything that is thick cannot be sharp at the edge. That is not what's happening here. This thing is thick, and it is super thick all the way down to where it starts to transition to the final cutting bevel, right? So the flat itself is ultra prominent. You can see here, this is an ultra prominent flat, but we have a hollow grind that allows it to get thin enough to where it will actually cut. This guy, no chance whatsoever. This is absolutely the thickest behind the edge knife that I have ever handled on this channel. I know how to make a cut, right? A lot of people who try to demonstrate, like, that's too thick to cut. I'm an idiot, right? Like, that's what they do, right? Because they're not going to try. They're not going to show it, right? If they already take the stance that thick knives can't cut, they're not going to make any attempt to prove the opposite. This, right? I know how to draw a blade through paper. This knife, I cannot get it to bite. All it wants to do is tear. I'm trying as hard as I'm gonna try as hard as I can. I'm really gonna make an attempt. This is the best that I can get out of it. The best. I appreciate what Midgards Messer is doing. They are making some crazy, big old, massively crazy thick knives, right? And they're fun. I own a few of them. I have 3 of them, actually. The Thunrar, the Beowulf, and the Viking. All 3 of those knives are more impractical than your average folding knife because they are so unbelievably thick. But they will still cut. This won't cut. It's just a dangerous kind of sharp thing. It can still be fun, right? It's just like, oh, it's so massively overbuilt and ridiculously impractical. It's just funny, right? And this has a lot of those elements. But the one thing that is missing that should still be present on any knife is the ability for it to actually cut, so that if you choose to carry it, it will actually do it, right? People will be like, oh, well, it makes it better, it's like a multi-purpose, it's multi-purpose. That's it, Complex. You just don't see the original vision. This knife is designed to be a pry bar and a screwdriver and a scraper. Stop. That's idiotic. That makes no sense whatsoever. A knife has one primary function. One, to cut. Any knife used for anything else outside of cutting will inevitably dull the blade beyond the point where its primary function will be its primary function. No, I refuse. I refuse that argument completely. Carry a multi-tool. Carry a multi-tool, right? The blade geometry will not allow this. I'm not coming down on, I'm coming down on like weird arguments that surround this type of stuff. This is a fun design, and it's weird. It's the first time that I have ever seen a front flipper that is this ridiculously thick and overbuilt, right? It's kind of fun. I appreciate stuff like this. This is coming from somebody who does like these big, crazy, overbuilt designs. But I still want the basic elements of what create a safe and at least semi-functional knife. I still want those present, right? The exposed tang, that's a problem. The front flipper area not being long enough, in relationship to the weight and mass of the blade and the strength of the detent, that needs to be fixed. And the big one, the blade it won't cut. It's not going to cut. It's just it might as well not be sharpened. The edge of this might as well look like this, right? You might as well just be carrying a folding piece of steel that looks like a rectangle. It's funny. I don't know if they're going for irony with the ultralight, because it's not, it's so heavy for how small it is, right? The blade has been massively milled out. There's lots of holes here, which gives it some character. I'll give it that. It's also just kind of strange, None of those can be used for deployment either. You have one option, one intended option for deployment, and it is awkward. Your only other option is unintended, and it is not comfortable. And you have to get your finger out of the way, or the thing will bite you. This entire knife is kind of like, I dare you to try to use me. I dare you. Try to deploy me. Try to cut something with me. I will probably bite you. That is, and maybe I'm a little bit more nervous now because I've been bitten a few times here lately, but the whole thing just feels incredibly unsafe. So yeah, ergonomically, that's one of the better things I can say about it. It is reasonably comfortable outside of the position of the pocket clip. This is a weird place to put the clip, and it is also super long. So despite the fact that it is flat, it doesn't have a swoopy bill thing. It's a little bit strange. But, it's not terrible. As far as something like this goes, which is a knife that's super thick, no matter what part of the knife you're looking at, it is not the most uncomfortable thing in the world. That's one of the better things I can say about it. You also have a nice spot back here to rest your thumb. You have 2 different options for jimping, right? Bigger chunks, more spread apart, or more Spyderco style jimping up here. Kind of nice, right? And you can definitely make use of that. That's pretty nice. I'll give it that, right? S30V, I don't know that any steel is necessarily the appropriate at this thickness, right? A lot of people try to, make justifications for blade stocks like this on folding knives that are ultra thick. Well, it'll make a big hole. That's the one I always hear. It'll make a big hole. Okay. Adjust your priorities. I don't know what to say to you. Like, that's a weird, what perspective are you taking there? What is your day to day where that's like, that is the benefit, right? Yikes. Strength, the pivot and the lock will fail way before the blade will, right? And the same could be said about a blade that was nowhere near as thick. I guess you'll get a little bit of, edge stability and tip stability or durability. You're less likely to snap the tip. But what you give up in potential performance is just massively unbalanced, right? So it's just silly to me to argue that stuff. I will say that the overall fit and finish of this is good, right? It's concept. They know what they're doing. It's great. Other than one thing, I could not get this thing centered. I tried. I did my trick with the paper, right? Which seems to work about 90% of the time. But every now and then, about 1 in 10, I get one that's just doesn't want to center. And this won't center. It just refuses, which is frustrating because everything is so thick. It's so obviously off. Does that create a problem in functionality? Not really. It's not rubbing. If the blade is rubbing on one side, then you've got a problem. It's not rubbing, but it's still frustrating considering what this knife costs, right? Yeah. The backspacer is the full length of the knife, which, normally I would kind of say something about, but, I don't know if they're talking about the balance. They did manage to balance this exactly right. Like between the handle and the holes and the blade and the holes and all that, they actually managed to balance it right behind the pivot. So I'll give them that. The other reason for the backspacer being this thick or this wide is to keep your fingers out of here so that you're not cutting yourself on the blade, which would be hard to do because the blade is very dull. But they did do that, so I appreciate that. I like the machining all the way around. I think it's nice. They've also chamfered all of these edges, so the inside of every hole is almost said the inside of every hole is soft. All right, recalibrate. These holes that they have milled on this knife, the edges have been chamfered and rounded down, so they are not displeasing to the touch. Yeah, there's a lanyard slot, so you can attach a lanyard to it if that's what you want to do. There is a steel lock bar insert, which doubles as the over travel stop, so that's nice. Thankfully, I don't normally say this, thankfully these are numbered. There are only 30 of these that exist, and I don't think any more should. I'll finish up here in just a moment. We have a stop pin back here located in its usual spot with plenty of plenty of shouldering, so that's nice. There is no blade play up, down, left, or right, so it does lock out solid. No lock stick, pivot lash. It gets a little bit grindy down here. I'm sure that some 10-weight nano oil would fix that. There's probably something on the detent ball path. A lot of times people get tight action or grindy action. They think that there's some fault with the one drop of KPL, I'll get it out, or 10-weight nano oil, guys. Most of the time, that's going to fix it. Both are linked down in the description. This one is in the Amazon store link, and this one has its own link. One drop will usually fix that. You don't need to freak out and send your knife back, right? So I don't want to judge that too much. No detent lash or anything like that. Okay. These are actually still available. I checked right before I started recording. If you're watching this, check the date on the video. If you're a month, 2 months out, a year out, and they're sold out, that's probably why. But at the time of recording, they were still available. How much were they? About $300. If it cut, this thing needs a much, like this whole flat area, it needs to start like way up here. And it also needs a hollow grind, right? To even start to be practical. That needs to be there. This cannot be exposed. It cannot be exposed. No way. This seems to be a theme with Midgards Messer knives where they mount the pocket clip back here. It's less awkward on this knife. It's more awkward on the larger knives. I don't really, I kind of wish that it would be more in a traditional spot down here. I do not like how, in this case especially, we didn't talk about this, there's so much of the knife sticking up out of your pocket. This is shallow carry. I can't stand that. The lanyard hole should never be prioritized above the clip, ever. I And even, for people saying like, oh, there's utility in attaching a lanyard to a knife. For this, let's be real. This, honestly, can you create an argument like where it applies to the average person? I don't think you can. I'm almost just like daring everybody to argue with me in this review. I'm sorry. I like the reason I'm so salty is because I like these silly, crazy, overbuilt knives. I like them, but I like that there's what's usually involved is care and attention in the design. Still, even if it is impractical, I almost kind of enjoy that irony, right? Here, it's just everything is silly. This is just a silly sandwich, right? No, I can't recommend this at all. There's nothing. The only redeemable thing here is that the ergonomic lines are kind of okay, right? But I want to like this. This could have been dramatically better. I understand, that's the thing. People point out in Germany, it's like one hand manipulation in terms of a pocket knife is something that they don't like over there, I guess. I don't know how they got by with the front flipper thing. Maybe because it's a new concept and there's not a law that specifically, points the finger at that. I don't know. This doesn't work. I'm very excited to see what else comes out of Midgards Messer, and I have very much enjoyed the craziness of the other designs, and they work, right? And they're fun. And most importantly, they still cut. This is a no from me. But if you really want it, I'll link it down below if you really, really want it. But just there are better things out there for $300. This just doesn't come anywhere close. So I do still appreciate Midgards Messer sending this to me and giving it to me. I'm just going to let you guys know. They gave this to me for free, right? A free knife doesn't mean an automatic good review. There are people, who definitely think that as long as I get it for free, I'm going to say nice stuff. No. But Midgards Messer and other companies who send me stuff, they know this. They know that I'm going to say what I think, right? That's part of the deal. When you send me stuff, I'm gonna give my honest thoughts. So my honest thoughts here are no thank you. But still appreciate it. Thank you very much to Tools for Gents and Midgards Messer for sending this in. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.